Hi, my name is Matthew Keer, and I'm presenting my psychology in film project for Intro to Psychology. I went with Fred Figglehorn from Fred the Movie for my case report. Fred Figglehorn is a 15-year-old teenager who is overtly socially awkward when it comes to interacting with those in his life. The plot of the film is surrounded by Fred trying to get to Judy's party, an acquaintance of Fred's, who he seems to think is his girlfriend when in reality Judy just sees Fred as some weird kid. His behavior is seen as abnormal by his mother, his neighbors, and his classmates, which separates him socially from his peers. An important note is that several times throughout the film, he shows a strange interpretation of reality compared to things, how things are actually occurring. For his cultural and environmental setting, he lives in an age marked by the internet of the 2010s, which influences certain beliefs he has throughout the film. An important note when considering his upbringing is his absence of a father figure, who, with a mother who doesn't work and doesn't provide Fred with parental care and normally leaves him to his own devices. Socially, he is viewed as a weird kid and also gets bullied by his neighbor Kevin, who he's grown up with his whole life. His home setting is a lower to middle class neighborhood, in which he also has to take the bus to get around, having no car. A logical diagnosis for Fred's mental state would be schizophrenia. Schizophrenia involves cognitive disorganization such that it involves the person's perception of reality. It affects the person's perception of reality. It affects their cognitive abilities. It gives abnormal emotional patterns and behavioral inconsistencies, overall leading to a loss of contact with reality for the person's everyday experiences. Taking into account the life of Fred, if a therapist in Fred's settings were to affirm or discount schizophrenia, his exposure to certain internet topics might normalize situational delusions he's been having. Not only that, but talking with the mental character might be seen as just a teenager having fun, as many kids have their own ways of keeping occupied, like video games. Most importantly, though, Fred is a developing kid and failed to receive proper parental guidance. This just enables off-normal behaviors that schizophrenia might also explain. Across different cultures, views of schizophrenia might be different, which can affect diagnosis. Many countries with modern healthcare and educational systems would see schizophrenia as an actual disorder, whereas some third world countries in Central Africa or Haiti might see it as spiritual, as determined by a study conducted by Angermeyer and Schomerus in 2016. A popular stigma towards schizophrenia can be seen as a collective social attitude suggesting its dangerousness or unpredictability, also determined from Angermeyer and Schomerus. Not only that, but in East Asia, schizophrenia is mainly attributed with shame to the associated family, whereas on the other side of Asia, a Hindu view of punishment from bad karma is a common attitude to schizophrenia. According to the 5th edition of the Diagnostic Statistic Manual, Fred exhibits two primary symptoms of schizophrenia: hallucinations and delusions. He hallucinates Durf, a fake friend he made in a bus when he was feeling lonely. Durf is like the opposite of Fred, where Fred hopes to be like him in many ways socially. Fred also hallucinates a father figure for himself, who lives in his fridge, weirdly enough, who is also played by John Cena. He also hallucinated interacting with a missing kid he knew in the past, named Little Evan Weiss, when he was traversing the woods to get to Judy's party, which is at her new house. For his delusions, he thinks that Judy got kidnapped by an Asian family next door, who moved into Judy's old house, simply because he wasn't informed of Judy moving over there to a different location, and he sooner accepted the belief that Judy got kidnapped rather than her moving away. Another delusion of his is that he ordered a camouflage jacket thinking it would actually turn him invisible, but that was not the case, of course. Another delusion would be that he thought he had dug a china when he dug under his own fence to get to Judy's house right next to him, when he just ran into an Asian family. And of course, he did not dig to China. One symptom from the DSM-5 Fred doesn't show would be negative symptoms, as it pertains to low emotional and motivational activities, things that are almost the opposite with Fred. According to a research study by Habtewald in 2020, negative symptoms were more common in those with depression, low self-esteem, who were unmarried and had limited social functioning, most of which are not seen or are just not relevant in Fred's case. The most appropriate treatment for Fred would be cognitive behavioral therapy, specifically for psychosis, or CBTP. The treatment involves creating healthy coping methods, daily routines, and educational bases that would help Fred slowly realize his own delusions while also managing hallucinations. I chose this treatment because it is reportedly better than other methods at treating general symptoms, according to studies conducted by Rector and Beck in 2001 and 2012. Some ethical concerns might arise when treating Fred with CBTP. For example, the process of challenging previous delusions might provide him with distress, as some symptoms might be coping methods themselves for other underlying issues. An example of that would be Fred makes a father figure for himself, likely due to the fact that he doesn't have one. Another ethical concern would be a therapist's personal perception of Fred's life, which could affect how treatment would expect Fred to feel about his own reality, as everybody's perception of everybody else's reality is all subjective. And lastly, CBTP is no guarantee for any kinds of results, which could create false hope and might waste Fred's money and time. Some limitations specific to Fred's case would be his low financial support for CBT, along with a potentially hard time in receiving treatment, as he has nobody supporting him other than his made-up friends. Given the fact that his mom pays no attention to him, and he has no strong social relationship with others other than one friend, another neighbor of his, Bertha. Speaking to the accuracy of how schizophrenia is portrayed in Fred the movie, it is certainly flawed in many ways. Fred shows legitimate symptoms. However, it is not seen as abnormal, since the entire story is told in the narration of Fred. Another issue with his portrayal is that he seems to have a stable state of disorganized behavior, ruling out worsening quality of life over time being a condition of diagnosing a mental disorder. Because this is a comedy film, much of the observed symptoms are given a comedic effect, which couldn't follow a real basis of schizophrenic thoughts and behaviors. In the context of this and other films showing mental disorders, in the case of Fred, his conditions were under-exaggerated and were given non-negative tones, which might not be the case for other films, but still provides inaccuracies. Other films, as a collective, might create stereotypes or social stigmas that are grounded in false assumptions. Overall, like Fred the movie, movies can easily misinform on the reality of a mental disorder. Thank you.